warm welcome to the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show. And today's show is a tribute to Ray Wilkins MBE, which captures the life of a football player who was also a gentleman and still very much missed by all who knew Ray in both sport and personal life. Ray, of course, a truly celebrated gentleman, played for Chelsea, Manchester United, AC Milan, Queen's Park Rangers, Rangers in Scotland, and of course the England national team with 84 caps, playing at UEFA Euro 1980 and the 1982-1986 FIFA World Cups. Not forgetting, of course, Ray's appearances on Talksport as a football commentator. Yes, folks, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome on the show Ray Wilkins' son and successful businessman with a huge love for football, particularly in non-league game, Ross Wilkins. Welcome to the show, Ross.
Hello, how are we?
We're all very good, Ross. We're all very good. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. It really is. And what an exciting show it is going to be. I'm sure it's going to be fascinating all the way through.
Excellent. Thank you
So,
very much for having me. I'm really looking forward to it.
yeah, you're absolutely welcome. It's a pleasure, and thank you very much for coming on. So, Ross, let's start from the beginning. We always have to start from the beginning, don't we? What was it like having a famous top-class football player as a dad? And what are your fondest memories as a child growing up in the footsteps of your dad, not forgetting, of course, your loving mother?
So I wondered what your first question was going to be to me and when I was driving to work this morning.
Brilliant.
And that kind of popped into my head as the one I would probably ask the most.
Mm,
I'd probably say mixed, right? I think everyone has this perception that when you get brought up in let's call it a famous family, because at the time when dad was playing, he was very well known.
yes.
Everything's going to be very hunky-dory and very easy for you. And it's much to the contrary of that, to be fair. I think you get an opportunity to live a lifestyle that many people don't. That's a fact. You get to be part and see behind the scenes of something that's quite amazing in terms of the industry that he was part of. But all of a sudden, that comes with pitfalls as well. So, for example, when you're in a job and you're sacked, you have to deal with that side of it. When you're playing football and you break your leg, or as it was with Crystal Palace, then you have to deal with that side of it. I remember as a
Yes.
child sitting there, my dad coming home one day and he just had blood gushing from his nose. And I was like, what on earth's happened here? I was only a young boy. And he'd had his nose broken in the match and it just would not stop bleeding. Even after the match, it was
Mm,
still pouring out of his nose. So as a kid, that was quite shocking to watch. So I think it's a very mixed thing to live through. I obviously moved around a lot as a child as well. You mentioned all the clubs there
yes.
that he played for. So, back here, I was born in 81 myself. So when he was at Manchester United, so I lived in Manchester for a while.
Mm,
I was then taken to Milan when he played out there. Obviously, for the family, that was an amazing achievement. But for a young
oh, I
child,
bet.
just three, it's very strange to go from a Mancunian lifestyle into what was a nun school at the time, and be
Oh,
brought up and be brought up in that manner and learn a new language at the age of three when you're just starting to converse, and then go from that at six to Paris, and then go from Paris to Glasgow and lose everything you've learned in the foreign countries when you go to Glasgow. So it's quite you have to be quite adaptable, um,
yes.
and as a lifestyle, it was great in one hand, and on the other, it was quite difficult at times.
I mean, I can understand all of that, the traveling around in that way, the various cultures you experience at a young age, learning Italian, for example, fantastic, and
Yeah,
then potentially forgetting it when you come back to Glasgow
sunny
is another
Glasgow.
story. Yeah, good old Glasgow. Can't lovely people in Glasgow. I've got some good friends
Lovely.
up there, so I've got to be very careful what I say. But yes, Scotland's lovely. But I mean, of all the schools you went to, what was it like at school back in the day? I mean, obviously in the UK, everyone would have known you as having a father who was a famous football player. I mean, how did that go down with school friends? Was there jealousy? Was there acceptance? I should imagine a mixed bag as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was another mixed bag. So I think you'll find, like what I found when I was younger, it was kind of less of a thing. People kind of mentioned the matches maybe because you were just getting into
Yes.
football, especially in Scotland. Glasgow is a real football-driven city, and I think when we were up there, I was just starting to turn kind of what 7, 8, maybe 9.
Mm,
So you were just starting to understand the game a little bit, the rivalries that were going on between Rangers and Celtic. Obviously, I was privy to every single home match there, which was an amazing thing to go and witness. Because you're right, the people in Glasgow are fantastic, and the atmosphere that stadium brings is phenomenal. Like I went back to watch an old Vets game once, and I could not believe the place was packed to the rafters. And the noise that was coming out of it, you'd have thought it was a top Premier League match to go and win the championship. It was that exciting. So, yeah, it's a phenomenal place. But then obviously coming back down south, when I think Dad was at QPR later on in his life, where he was almost player manager. He had a really good season the first season. I think they got just one place off of Europe he got them into. And then the second season, they'd sold people like Les Ferdinand and Clive Wilson and the likes of, and they really struggled that year. And if it wasn't for a game against Manchester United, where I think United drew in the last minute, I think they might have stayed up, but they got relegated, and that brought a lot of heat on me as a kid at
Oh
school,
yes.
and I really did feel that. I wouldn't quite go to the stage of saying it was bullying, but it wasn't far off that place. So yeah, again, real mixed bag. Like as a kid, it can be, one day it's euphoric, the next day it can be hell on earth if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time.
No, I can fully understand that completely. That's why I asked the question, because it must have been a tough time, full of ups and downs, I can only imagine, which you've just said. And and of course you've got supporters at school who might be supporting Manchester United, or dare I say it, Liverpool, who have a great hate for Chelsea, for example, when Ray, your father, was at Chelsea. So it must have caused some excitement in the playground, some positive and negative thoughts and feelings towards you as a person, I should imagine, because it happens, doesn't it, on the verge of bullying? It does do.
Yeah, I think we're lucky. I was lucky when I was brought up because social media wasn't as prevalent. Obviously, it wasn't around
Oh, that's good.
at all. So when you think back to me as a kid, there was no
Mm,
pictures being taken. It was newspaper. It was newspaper or
yeah.
teletext, right? Let's Kids nowadays would be like, "What the hell's teletext?" But it was things like that where you got your
Okay.
news from.
It is.
Whereas now, if you look at it, you're dealing with it on an hourly basis, not a daily basis.
Mm,
So I look at Wayne Rooney's kids and stuff like that. Like they're all playing, and at some point they're going to get a lot of heat, aren't they? And when Dad steps out of line, it's going to be straight in the press the next day, and you've got to go to
of course it
school and
is.
deal with that. And I feel for them nowadays more than what I would have felt for myself for sure, because I
Mm.
think actually now it would borderline but be bullying.
Yeah, exactly. The
Horrendous.
social media is absolutely disgraceful these days, where it goes on sometimes, as we know.
Yeah.
Some players, and individuals at clubs as well, just go through a lot of torment, don't they? It's just
Mm.
quite a worrying time with the way social media acts at times.
It can be.
But yeah, but let's just talk a little about your dad as a gentleman. I mean, cutting this piece in early, but we'll come back onto it a bit later on.
Yeah.
When after your dad sadly passed, Ross, an anonymous soldier called you and credited Ray for saving his life when your dad took time to sit with the anonymous soldier on the street, gave him £20 and buy him a coffee. This is a great story. The soldier told Talksport, and I quote, "That night I took that £20 and I got some shelter and had a hot meal. This is a striking testament to Ray's enormous empathy and generosity to others, particularly where people are not so fortunate, as we know. Can you tell us more about this particular act of kindness of Ray, Ross? Because that is him in a nutshell, isn't it, really?"
Yeah, it really was. I think Dad brought us up to be very similar as well, me and my sister.
Mm,
In that it's respect everyone around you, no matter what level you're talking to. He
yes.
wanted us to be able to go in a room with dignitaries and be able to talk to them,
Mm,
or walk into the poorest place in England and be able to sit there and converse on a level with everyone. And I actually think that's something that's probably lost in a lot of people nowadays, that the ability to talk to everyone, because I think it gets you so far if you can do that. He was such a kind soul deep down. Like all he ever wanted to do was help other people.
mm,
He got himself into situations before where he could have probably got himself out of situations, but rather than that, he'd rather help someone else out of that situation.
yes.
That's both at clubs and in personal life as well. So, yeah, I mean, deep down with the soldier, when I heard that on Talksport, it was I've got to be honest, me and my sister and my mum all cried our eyes out listening to it the
Oh, I
first
can
time.
imagine.
It's quite an emotional thing to hear someone talk so wholesome, I think, about your father.
Mm,
Especially when, I mean, to you, like to everyone growing up, especially a boy to the dad, your
yes,
dad's your strong one in your life, isn't he? He's the one you look up to. He's the one you kind of compare yourself to or try and achieve what he achieved.
definitely.
Obviously, in my circumstance, that was very hard to do. But the one thing I tried to do was take the lessons that I thought I could achieve from that, which is the way I converse with people, the way I communicate with people. I'm quite comfortable with criticism. I'm quite comfortable sitting down with people and telling them
Yes.
business what I don't think is right. But I'll always do that in a similar way to how my dad would have done it in football. And he would have done it with a smile. He would have done it with the right sentiment. And that's how he was all through his life. No matter what he was doing, he was that kind of guy.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And what a way to be brought up. Fantastic. And as we all know, Ray had time for everyone, as you just said, and was loved by everyone he met, both within the game and outside of it. And are there any other special memories you can recollect and share with us where where Ray made such a difference in life to other people?
Um, so I don't know. It's very difficult. I think he was one of those characters, Lord Russell, that whenever he walked in a room, people
Yes.
gravitated to him. I
Mm.
think it was much to the detriment of my mum at times because they'd go out to dinner together and it would be like Ray, and he'd just jump at the chance of going and shout like talking to people. So
Yes.
there would be numerous instances, I think, where he would have been how you just described. And nothing really would spring to mind as a special circumstance. Probably that story from the soldier is the one that I kind of go back to now because I think that does encompass him as an individual, like, wholly, like I said earlier. Um,
Definitely, yeah. And of course, that's the story that was recorded. I mean, the other instances of similar actions from your father, Ray, of course, that weren't recorded. So
yeah,
that was just a one-off. And there's probably many situations like that he was involved with. I mean, as you just said, I mean, I've had some friends that, well, I used to go to La Cabana in Cobham, where I know your dad Ray used to go. You've probably been there yourself, Ross.
I was
It
there. It's
was
now the Ivy in Cobham.
Oh, it's now the Ivy now. That's not
The
so
Ivy
good, is it?
now.
It was great when it was the former its former self.
Yeah.
And I can remember friends going in there and said, "Oh, I saw Ray Wilkins in there this evening." I just had to say hello, Ray, and he just jumped up, shook my hand, and started talking and surprised people because that's just the way it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, I
Wonderful,
think he
absolute
he
gentleman.
he loved that engagement with the fans.
Mm,
And I think actually in latter life, it was probably one of the things that kind of killed him the most was that he found that he wasn't as well known with like the younger audience that was coming through and stuff like that. So there was
mm,
less and less of that going on. And when he was out the game, out of management, out of coaching, I think he found that. And I think footballers in general find that adulation miss quite a big
mm.
thing to deal with. Whether they feel it or know it, I think it happens like naturally because it's part of the course. It must be very strange when
Yes,
you're walking down a high street and everyone's going, "Oh, hi Ray, hi Ray, hi Ray." I remember going
yes.
bowling as a kid in at Rains Park.
Mm,
There's a David Lloyd there, and they used to have a little bowling alley in there, and he used to take us in there. He'd get stopped 4 or 5 times during the game just for an
mm.
autograph or a photo. So to go from that to then going to complete cold, no one knowing you, not it must be a very strange sensation. And it's definitely
Definitely.
something that mental health wise, I think a lot of sports people, the top sports people anyway, have to deal with and have to find a kind of way through. And I'm sure the younger crop that have now become the older crop of the Chelsea team of past are starting to find
Mm,
that. Although they can
yes.
find that fame through social media and that interaction through social media now. So again, that was different for him. But yeah, like he was larger than life. He would always be there signing autographs after training. He always encouraged the younger kids to do that as well, where they kind of didn't want to, they wanted to put the headphones on and walk away.
Yeah.
It was always like, no, no, come on, there's young kids out here, we need to go and do that. He was the first to put his hand up to go to the children's hospices at Christmas, and do
Wonderful.
the visits there because he just felt that if he could give a little bit back and it made someone else's life better for that 1 minute, why not do it? I think it's a nice sentiment to live by.
Oh, I totally agree. And it's a lovely memory you've got, really, of your father Ray there, isn't it? The person he was. It's fantastic. I mean, in more recent times, you did reveal that life without your father, Ray, of course, hasn't got any easier. This I personally understand very well because I've lost both my parents. I lost my first wife as well going back. So I've been through these situations. And was especially hard for you in 2020 due to the coronavirus lockdown guidelines.
Mm.
Crikey, it's hard for everybody, which prevented you from visiting your mother. Shocking. I mean, this time must have been really heartbreaking, Ross. Not just for you, but for your mother as well. Oh, it was a breakup of families, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Where
it
you
was. I
needed
think it
each
was
other
hard for a lot
most.
of people, wasn't it? It wasn't just
Yes.
in that circumstance. That period of time is one that I
Oh,
personally don't want to see ever again.
mm,
Whilst I know a lot of people saw it as they got a little rest from work and got paid a long paid holiday, there were a lot of people that also suffered a lot of pain during that time, and that were
yes.
dealing with pain during that time and weren't being able to be comforted by family and stuff like that. Luckily for us, eventually, I think mum came and stayed with us for a longer period of
Yeah.
time. So we kind of got through that as a family. But yeah, I think mental health wise, I struggled. Um, I don't really overtly struggle with it, but I know when I'm struggling with it.
Mm,
And I found a charity through Talksport actually called Strong Men.
mm,
I met the two guys that founded that, Ephraim and Dan at the time, and we just got talking, and I joined forces with them, and we did some charity stuff, and I still work with them now. And I think that was one way that I managed to turn a real negative into a positive, if I'm being really honest.
mm,
I think out of every negative can come something good. But
mm.
you really have to work hard at that and make that work for you. So yeah, personally, I did feel a lot of pain. I still do. I think we
Of
always
course you
miss
do.
people that are close to us. I think people need to understand as well that loss is based on what your relationship's like as well. So for me and my dad, obviously we moved around a lot as young children. I looked up to him immensely. He was best man at my wedding, above
Mm,
all of my mates. That's how close we were. So it was not just losing a father; it was almost like losing a best friend at the same time. And I think
yes.
that can hit doubly as hard. And I think, yeah, I mean, there's people that don't talk to their dads, right? And then when they die, they feel that loneliness and sadness. Great. But if you haven't had that relationship that I had, it's
Mm,
always gonna be hard to kind of bridge that gap. And now I put my heart and soul into my children and what they're doing.
excellent.
I'll give them the best life possible. And you divert attention, I think, don't you, to other things like business and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, you have to, and it's just a way of moving forwards in life, isn't it?
mm,
Really, other things take over. You've got a young family, as you say, business. They're all important aspects to your life, and they do help, don't they? They get you
mm.
through those emotional sort of traumas that potentially you could sink into
Well,
if
you
you
hit
never had those moments around you.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there by the terminology you use moving forward. I think a lot of people
Yeah,
go, you have to move on. You move on.
you do.
You don't move on from a loss. You move forward day by
Move
day,
forward.
slowly by
Correct.
slowly. And there's a big difference between that. Moving on from someone is almost like forgetting about them, like moving on
Yes.
completely. You always remember them. I don't think there's a day gone past that since Dad's passed,
Mm,
in all those years now where he hasn't come into my head at some point. So
yes.
for me, I haven't moved on from him. I've just learned how to live a new life without him there. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's important. And without that charity, strongmen being in part of my life, I don't know what place I would have been in now. To be honest, they were really great. And
Well,
I'd implore anyone to go and look at them if they're suffering with grief or anything like that, because it's a brilliant charity.
absolutely. I think not just, I mean, any charity is a good charity. If you've got um, issues, mental health issues or grief,
Mm,
it's great to get yourself involved with a charity of some description because you can see the other side of the fence. Other people are suffering. You
mm,
can help, and it helps you get through, doesn't it? Mentally, helps you get through that battle. I think so. It's a very valid thing to say. So
absolutely.
I congratulate you on that.
No, thank you.
We, yeah, brilliant. That's a fantastic story. Besides being a true gentleman, Ray Wilkins, of course, your dad was also an extraordinary footballer. And Ross, you quoted, looking back at it, I can see just how good a player Ray was. I couldn't fully appreciate it at the time. I mean, Ross, you also added, it is quite phenomenal what Ray achieved in such a short career. We'll shortly get on to your dad's football and media career, of course, but what else can you tell us about Ray as a man, dad, husband, and gentleman, apart from what you've already just said? Well, you've probably covered most of the things now, I should imagine.
Yeah, I
But I
think
can,
I think we're pretty much covered on that front. I mean, going to that bit where you mentioned like I didn't really truly appreciate it. I think when you're
yeah.
growing up in the bubble that
Well,
is
you were young.
your very
Yeah.
own family, you're just living the life that you think is normal, right? And
Yes.
it was normal for me to get up on a Saturday morning, him to be eating a pre-match meal, and then go off to watch professional football. That was our every Saturday, and then eventually it became a
Well, I can
Wednesday,
imagine.
Thursday thing. And Sunday, obviously, when we were in Italy. So it it was only probably when I got to like 16, 17 and was playing kind of youth football myself at a half decent level that I really started to look at like what Dad's career was like and what he'd achieved and the standard I was getting to. I was thinking I was doing quite well, but then you think of
Mm.
all the levels above that standard to where
Oh, yes.
he did it at Chelsea at 17 and a bit, so as captain,
Yeah.
which I don't think he'll ever be beaten again, to be fair. I don't think there'll ever be a Chelsea captain at the age of 17, not unless they're
No.
really exceptional. So I started to compare my own standing in life at 16 and a half to where he was 17. And it wasn't a very
Certainly.
good thing to do, to be fair, because that's quite
No.
demoralizing.
No, no, you could probably put yourself down a bit, didn't you? Really, probably give you some mental issues
Yeah.
moving forwards.
There was some
'Cause,
anguish there, that's for sure.
well, I mean, but at least you recognise that. I mean, I always remember. We'll get on to your dad now, obviously, about with his sporting traditions, but he had a phenomenal football mind, didn't he? He was leaps ahead of everybody. He could think, a dozen moves ahead of everybody else in the game. He knew where people were going to be. He made his space, his timing. He is exquisite on the ball. His feet were just incredible. I mean, he was just a superb football player, wasn't he? To be honest.
Yeah, I mean, he's Pep Guardiola's dream, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
he
Oh,
would have fitted into a Pep Guardiola team like no one's business because, like you said, the way he scanned before he received the ball, he knew where it was going. He'd play passes before people even got near him, round the corners, and
oh,
he was quite far ahead of his time. And somewhat, I think, early on in his career, maybe when he went to Man United, somewhat
mm,
underappreciated at points, in terms of just how good he was. I think there was a lot of negativity in the press about him passing sideways and not
oh
create.
yeah,
But for him, it was a game of possession. So it was about biding your time. And
exactly.
he learned a lot of that in Italy, I think, where it wasn't as rush as the English game was. It was a more methodical approach to defending and then moving forward and progressing the ball up the pitch.
Yep.
And he wanted to bring that back to kind of the English game at some point because he thought that is how it needs to be played. Like we need to start matching what the European teams are doing and then bettering it to become a better all-round side. So yeah, he had this ability to do it, and I think ever since he started playing, I mean, when he was very young, he was scoring goals for Chelsea.
Mm,
He was a pretty good goal scorer. And then he turned into this player that was more of a creator, and he was more known for what he'd assist. And obviously, back in those days, assists weren't counted for anything. But if
that's
you were
right.
to get, I don't know if you could even pull an assist record for Ray Wilkins' career,
I
but
don't think one exists. I've
it,
checked. I
it
couldn't
would
find
be
one
quite
anywhere.
phenomenal, I would think, if
I
you
would
actually
think
had
so.
that. I mean, just ask Les Ferdinand and Kevin Gallen at QPR alone, like the amount of
Mm.
balls he put in for them to score from would have been phenomenal. So, yeah, I think he was very much ahead of his time. His career was one that was should be well celebrated because I think
I
he
think so.
what he achieved was phenomenal, really.
I mean, that sideways game, as you say, which you developed more so at Manchester United, is exactly how Barcelona ended up playing football.
Mm.
Pep Guardiola's style of football, and probably the sort of style of football that was being played in the Premier League up until last season. It's changed a little bit this year,
Yeah.
but so yeah, definitely ahead of the game, definitely without doubt.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
it's keeping possession, right? So he used
it
to
is.
talk to the Chelsea boys. I think it was the Chelsea boys. He used to talk to in training about treating the ball like a baby. He said, "You never give
Mm,
your baby to anyone, would you?" He said, "Why are you going to give
no,
the ball away?"
exactly.
And he
Yeah.
used to joke with it, but it was all about keeping the baby. And it was a good theory because if you've got the ball, you can only do a positive thing with it eventually, which is score a goal.
Correct.
If the opposition
Correct.
don't have the ball, they can't hurt you. So
Exactly.
yeah, it just made sense the way he played.
Well, that's what Brian Clough once said, isn't it? If you've got the ball, your opposition can't score. So keeping hold of the ball is a key thing. And that's a Brian Clough philosophy too.
Mm.
So, he probably would have done well with Brian Clough, wouldn't he, actually? Your dad
Yeah,
would have gone
probably
well
would have
there
been.
too.
I think he'd have
But,
done really
Ray was born into a footballing family, of course, with his father
nicely.
and
Yes.
three brothers involved in the game. I mean, what memories do you have about your granddad, of course, and Ray's other brothers, two of which, Graham and Steve, were also at Chelsea with Ray, weren't they?
Yes, obviously that was a part of my life where I wasn't even born, in terms
Of
of
course.
them all being at Chelsea. So I only know what really my Uncle Graham's told me, which was he was the better
Yes.
brother out of all of them.
And
And
what's Graham's
actually,
nickname? He's got a nickname, hasn't he? What's his nickname?
who,
Graham?
Graham? It's got a few, I think.
Yeah.
Um, no, Graham, according to everyone I've spoken to, could have been a phenomenal footballer.
Mm,
Everyone said he was brilliant at what he did. And I was very fortunate when Dad couldn't play in the what was the old Chelsea Vets team in the end.
yes.
I'd get invited along to play in some of those matches with some of the old boys.
Wow,
And
lucky you.
yeah, and sometimes a couple of games I played in front of Graham, I think against Southampton at one point, and the amount of talking he did through the game,
Mm,
even though he hadn't played it himself for so long, it was phenomenal to play with someone like that that just knew it inside out. There was a great story, and I don't know the game that it was that Dad got crunched. It might have been against Leeds or something at Stamford Bridge, and Graham was on the bench, and he got asked to come on the pitch, and he was going on at left back. and someone asked him to switch to right back. Graham
Mm.
walked on and told the right back to switch out the other way, just so he could go and nail the guy that had nailed that. I think
It's brilliant.
they had a brotherly love there that would have been great to watch grow up. But unfortunately, Graham's career was cut short through injury,
Yeah,
which
it
was
was.
a shame.
Huge
But
shame.
he remains a fantastic bloke. I saw him, what, 2, 3 months ago. We had a coffee.
Brilliant. Well, give him my regards. I do remember watching Graham play left back for Chelsea.
Mm,
And of course, Ray in the middle there, and that great sort of youthful Chelsea side at the time. Oh, it was
yeah.
brilliant, wasn't it? Absolutely
Had a lovely team,
fantastic.
didn't they, back then? When you look at it, well, I see
Oh,
some of the old videos from it and stuff, and I
oh.
obviously talked to people around that era. Yeah, they had a great young team that there.
They
Phenomenal.
did have a great young team. Of course, I was with Stevie Wicks just the other week, of course, as well. Who
Mhm.
was in that team with your dad Ray, and he talks so favourably about Ray, as everybody does. I mean, Steve Wicks, what a lovely man he is too, absolute gentleman as well. And
But
of
they
course,
all were,
Gary
weren't they? Like
Stanley,
when you talk to
they
all
all
those
were.
guys, they were such great guys. I remember walking into the dressing room and Mickey Draw, we was at Fulham for a
Oh, Mickey
game.
Draw, yeah.
And Mickey Droy was standing there with a cigar in his mouth. I didn't know him from Adam at the time, and everyone introduced me as Ray Wilkins' son. And he just went, "Well, you better be better than your bloody dad," and took a cigar out, put it back in again. And just great characters. And I think actually, when you look at the game now, I don't know whether it is social media or the way the media is in general with the players, but there
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be those characters there was back then in the game anymore. It's a bit of a shame, really.
No, it's a huge shame. And I can remember speaking to Teddy Maybank, of course, or he likes to be called Ted Maybank these days, not Teddy. But he was saying, half time in the winter, we'd often have a glass or two of cognac or rum to warm us out, to go
Mm.
out in the second half. And I thought, you know what? That sometimes explains some of Chelsea's erratic second half displays going back. It was such an interesting thing to know about and hear. But that's what Teddy Maybank told me. And I thought, well, that's brilliant, isn't it? And that would never happen today, would it? Let's be
No,
honest. That's
no,
gone
and
out of the
I've
game.
got to be honest, I don't think it should happen
No, it
either.
shouldn't even. No,
But
I totally agree. Especially with the likes of Chopper Harris. I mean, it probably meant some of his tackles went a bit wayward as well in the second half more than the first. But yeah, great times though.
yeah,
I mean, we said it already, but Ray, your dad, of course, played as midfielder and he began his professional career at Chelsea in 1973, obviously long before you were born. Good 9 years, 8 years before you were born. What did Ray talk to you about later in life about his time at Chelsea between 73 and 79? I mean, I think they were some of his favourite times, weren't they, playing his playing days? That
Hmm.
was a great side, as we just mentioned. Some of the players in that side were phenomenal. I mean, crikey, Gary Stanley, what a player he was. I mean, he just lists that side out, and they should have won more than they did.
Yeah,
And I think when they got promoted in 1978, if I remember, if they'd have had the same investment into the side as Nottingham Forest did, it wouldn't have been Nottingham Forest that had won the First Division title and gone on to European success. It would have been Chelsea with that
yeah.
side.
I think he felt that they were close,
Mm,
to being a really, really top team, but there obviously wasn't that investment. I mean, you're going back to a time where the players in downtime during pre-season would go and paint the stadium.
yes.
That's something that players nowadays would never be doing in a million
Oh,
years.
no.
When they were
No, exactly.
apprentices and YTS back then, they were cleaning the boots of the professional players. Again, something that doesn't
Yes.
happen nowadays. So it's a very different era. I always find it hard, and I don't think people should actually ever do it in comparing eras and players and stuff like that. I
Mm,
just don't think it works. But he always felt that they were a close to being great team, and they probably just
yeah.
need a little bit of investment and maybe one or two to come in, and they could have gone on and achieved more, like you said. So yeah, but when you're talking about memories, and no matter what club he'd been at, I mean, he adored his time in Italy. I think him and my mum, that's probably the happiest they've been whilst they were moving around. Um, he talks so fondly of Glasgow Rangers, the
Oh,
characters up there, the people he played with, and
yeah.
that squad, when you look back at that on paper, was absolutely phenomenal. Then there was the kind of QPR days where he
Yeah.
went from a player to player manager to manager, and again characters all over the place in that team. And he loved them fondly, but deep down, no matter which one you tried to sway him on, it was always Chelsea that won. And
Yeah.
you kind of saw that come through, I think, in his latter years in the punditry side of it, where he
Definitely.
wasn't biased, but if it was Man U, Chelsea, he would try and
Yes.
stay as absolutely, empathetic to both as possible, but he'd always lean that slightly towards Chelsea all the time. And myself, I'm a Manchester United fan, so that I found that quite difficult. And we used to have quite a lot of combative chats, so we say, in our family between
I
the
can
two of
only
us
imagine.
when
Yes,
those games were going on.
absolutely. That would have been an interesting. Well, for me, I'd like to have been a fly on the wall listening to that. That would have been quite an interesting debate to witness, I'm sure. And of course, in 1975, I remember this because I think one of the first games I ever went to at Chelsea was in 75, or that season, 74, 75. I went to Derby County at Stamford Bridge. I
Okay.
sat, I sat in the West Stand, hardly anybody there on an evening, on the benches. Remember the benches at Stamford Bridge?
Mhm.
And watching Chelsea lose 2-1 at home to Derby County. And Derby County in those days were a top side. But in 1975, following Chelsea's relegation, I mean, crikey, I was in tears. And the departure of many established players. Ray Wilkins, your father, of course, at the tender age of 18, you mentioned it earlier in the show, was handed the captaincy of Chelsea by new manager Eddie McCready. What a player he was, taking over from the long-time Blues captain John Hollins, another fantastic star, lost, of course, now sadly. Ray took the role well, staying as captain for 4 years. I mean, what stories can you remember about Ray as captain of Chelsea? You weren't alive, you weren't around, but what did you hear from various people around at the time that you got
I
to
mean,
got to
I think
befriend?
I watched a video back of him doing an
Mm.
match of the day interview, and I found it hilarious because he's got this like high pitched squeaky voice on it, and you're sitting there
Yes.
going, how at 17, 18 is he captain of a top side like that? And I think he took it. Everyone I spoke to always said that he was obviously naive to certain things that were going on back then because he was a
Yes.
young boy at the end of the day, young man starting his career. But he showed great maturity at the same time, beyond his years. And I think that was his footballing brain kicking in. I
Yes.
think he was able to, whether he could lead by example at that period of time with his voice, maybe not so much, but by what he did on the pitch with the ball, I think that's where his captaincy kind of really started to take to the fore. And then obviously as he got older, he learned how to communicate properly, and he ended
Of
up
course he
becoming a
did.
bit of a master at that side of things as well. So I think Chelsea gave him a phenomenal grounding, which
Oh,
probably
without
put him on
doubt.
the pathway to his future career. Like without that grounding he had there and that opportunity to be captain, who knows, you might not have quite achieved the heights you achieved.
Exactly. And sometimes being pushed out of your comfort zone into a non-comfortable position is a good position for you because it actually creates you as a person, gets your strengths, builds you the extra pieces in your life you need, the jigsaw puzzles you can start put together. So I think it's a brilliant thing. And I can remember recently seeing an extract from the big match with Brian Moore interviewing Ray, your dad. And it was all about him becoming Chelsea captain at the age of 18. I mean, Ray then, of course, had a whole heap of hair like I did, and I'm sure you did when you were younger.
Yeah.
In fact, my hairstyle was pretty similar to Ray's, funnily enough. Now it's all gone, of course, a bit like us. And he did come across naive in the interview, but he had that famous smile. He came across very elegantly, very knowledgeable. He put himself in a great position on the big match. And, you looked at him and you thought, you know what? You're going to be a fantastic player when you get older. So great testament to your dad at 18 years of age. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's phenomenal.
phenomenal.
It is, and
I
like I said
mean,
earlier, I don't think it'll be repeated. To be fair,
no, I don't think
I
so.
think that alongside becoming England captain for the short period he did that for, I
Mm,
think those are two of the proudest moments he probably had in the
definitely.
game. To be fair, because I think to captain any side shows that you're a natural leader, and if you're
Definitely.
if you're in professional sport, that's what you want to kind of be known as, isn't it? So
And especially a club like Chelsea that, going back in the day as they are now, they're famous. The King's Road, the expectations are high. Supporters want the best. It was it was a huge risk for Ray, wasn't it? Really, he had to hold himself up high to carry that position because
mhm.
the expectations would have been high. There's no doubt about that. All around, and the cameras and the thoughts would have been all over him, and the newspapers.
Yeah.
But Ray did emerge as Chelsea's key player of that period, leading a team of mainly young players, of course, as we said earlier on, to promotion again in 1976, 77. Oh God, do I remember that? I went to the I went to the home game against Hull, And was it Hull? Yeah, it was Hull. We won 4-0, won promotion. And I think Billy Bremner was in playing for Hull that day, but he couldn't play at the time because he was injured. But I can remember running on the pitch actually. So one of those stories best forgotten, I guess. But euphoria, promotion again. It's 76, 77. I was a young lad and I was just loving the whole thing.
Yeah.
And in the next season, consolidation of their place in the first division, a very proud moment for the family, which I'm sure Ray talked about readily with you too, Ross. I mean, they did. They consolidated the following season, didn't they? They played extremely good football,
Mm.
mid-table, fantastic, back in the
Which
first
is-
division.
Yeah, and I think when you watch, I mean, look at the Premier League nowadays, right? All the teams that come up typically go back down again.
Mm.
And for a young team to come up and then be able to perform like they did, that would have been a phenomenal
Oh,
achievement for them. And then I think that led, I think he had a very good season that year, and that led him towards the sale at Man United in the end, because I think
mm.
when the club hit the financial difficulties they started to head towards, that's when they started looking at Dad, thinking he's one that we could cash in on here and actually make some money. I mean, it was never Dad's intention, and he was quite vocal about that, to ever leave Chelsea. He would quite happily have done a Ryan Giggs and stayed there all his playing career. But I
Yeah,
think the
I think he
time
would
would
have done
come
too.
where the value of him was recognised, and obviously Manchester United came calling, and when they do, invariably people want to take the cash and people want to go and play for him. So that's what ended up happening there, which is a bit of a shame for Chelsea's side of it, but obviously for Dad, it progressed his career
Yeah.
to a new state.
And a few players got moved on. It wasn't just Ray, was it? And when we had it previously in previous seasons when Peter Oscar was moved on, of course, and Alan Hudson and others because of financial problems with the new East Stand. But Chelsea's problems were still continuing. So sell Ray, as you say, he had to get sold to save the club, but so did Steve Wicks. I mean,
Mm,
Steve Wicks, he was a Chelsea boy. He was brought up in the same youth side as Ray,
yeah,
and he was told one day, Steve, you've got to go to Derby. No, I don't want to go to Derby. I like it here. I'm a Chelsea supporter. I've been here all my life. I don't want to go to Derby. And I think it was Brian Mears that was positioned it at the time, actually. And Brian said, well, look, go and speak to the accountant and he'll tell you why. So he went off to speak to whoever the financial man was, I forget his name, and said, look, Steve, if you don't go to Derby on this for this £550,000 deal, the club, Chelsea, won't be in business in 2 weeks' time. We're finished. And that was the reality. And I suspect with Ray, your dad, he was also told a similar
very,
situation.
very similar conversations.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
was a case of, if you don't make that move, think of all the job losses, think of all the players you're playing with. Where
Mm,
does everyone end up in X amount of years' time? And do you know what? Fair play. Like, they were going to move anyway, right? Like, when
yeah,
you get dealt that hand, you're going to go, aren't you? You're not going to sit there.
exactly.
It's the same in business tomorrow. If someone said to me, Ross, you need to leave to alleviate some funds to let the business survive, you'd go, wouldn't you? You wouldn't want a whole
Well,
business to fall apart overnight.
of
Like,
course you
no
wouldn't.
one would want to do that.
You have to accept it on
Um,
the chin, don't you?
yeah, you do, but it's also not nice the way that's dealt, especially when you've got a profound love for the club that you're playing for, and
Mm,
obviously you've been brought up through that, not grassroots, but through the academy system, what it would be now,
exactly,
into that YTS platform, gone on to be the youngest captain ever, and now you're being successful and starting to turn a corner, and then it's like,
exactly,
"Oh, now off you go. You need to go, otherwise we're done." That's always a bit of
exactly.
a conversation.
And of course, that in those days, going back, you started at the club and generally you stayed at that club, and very rarely you moved on to another club unless for reasons that like we're just talking about now. The Man United team, because you're a big Man United supporter, Ross. I mean, that team, the youth team that went through to create the famous Manchester United team of yesteryear.
Yeah,
I mean, with Giggs and everybody else. I mean, it's just one hell of a side, wasn't it? And they were there forever, almost,
yeah,
pretty much. Beckham, obviously, David Beckham was sold on for the famous football boot in the dressing room extravaganza. But at Chelsea, Ray was a Chelsea supporter through and through. And of course, there we are. But in 1979, after Chelsea were relegated for the second time in a few years, Ray did sign for Manchester United for a fee of 825,000, the highest fee received for a Chelsea player at the time. I believe Ray was a Chelsea supporter, as we talked about from childhood. So, what memories do you have of Ray's time at Manchester United? Now, your club, we're coming on to your club, Ross, or at least memories that your dad shared with you at Manchester United, because he must have taken you there.
yes. Well, obviously, I was born in 81, so just when
Yes.
we were there for about a season, so I would have gone there as a
Yeah.
young babe in arms. I would have thought, with my mum.
I would have thought so,
I think
yes.
one of my first pictures is in an FA Cup, sitting there, with mum and dad either side of it. So,
Brilliant.
obviously we didn't have
What a
mobile
picture.
phones. we obviously don't have mobile phone cameras back then, did we? So it had to be a
No.
professional photo. But yeah, from what he used to talk about with United, he really struggled. It was a
Mm.
real big adjustment. And he said to me that he never really realized the magnitude of that club until he joined it. And I think you still
Mm.
see that nowadays. There's still
You
players
do.
nowadays that club. I think there's very few in the world that carry it. I think there's Liverpool,
Mm.
there's Manchester United. I'd
Mm.
probably say Rangers and Celtic for Scottish players would carry the same. Barcelona and Real Madrid, very few others carry this burden of you have to win every game and you
Yeah.
have to be your best every single week. Normally, you can play for a team and you can get away with having an 80% or 70%,
Mm.
but it just wasn't accepted up there. And I think
Yeah.
there was a period of time, I don't know whether it was first or second season, where Dad really struggled to perform at a level. And I look at Mason Mount, and I've seen that in
Yeah.
him
Classic.
since he's moved from Chelsea to there.
Mm.
He's had that similar thing. I know he's had injuries, but when he has played, he's looked a little bit below par and he hasn't been able to quite turn it on yet. But if you look back at Mason Mount at Chelsea, there's a phenomenal footballer in there. And he
Yeah.
just
I'd
needs a
agree with you.
pre-season and a good run of games. And I swear you'll start to see the benefit of a
Yeah.
Mason Mount. And I think Dad was very similar to that, where he went to this club. It was a massive auditorium to play in compared to what he was used to at Chelsea. The expectation on him was huge.
Mm.
They wanted to win not just the league, but you're talking about, the European leagues as well, like
Yes, of course.
European Championship. So they were fighting on every single front. And yeah, he struggled. And then I can't remember who the manager was, but he actually sent him away to America for a 2 3 week period and said, just go away, have a rest, think about things, come back. And he came back in the next 2 seasons. He was voted Players Player of the Season by the Supporters Club of Manchester United. And
Yeah.
it just goes to prove sometimes when you're in a bit of a rut, you've got to remove yourself from it, take a bit
Yeah.
of time, have a deep breath, come back with a different mentality and have another crack at it. And if you've got the ability, you will achieve it eventually.
Yeah, and that goes back to your earlier statement about going off to do some work for a charity, doesn't it? Clear your head, clear your soul, clear your
Mm.
mind, and then come back and see things in a different way. Because you're right, with the likes of Liverpool, Manchester United, and indeed Chelsea now, of course, have probably got the same aura. Um, the expectation is high, and great players, good players, really, really top class international players can struggle at those grounds because of those clubs, because of the expectation. And of course, Ray went through it there in his early days.
Well, look at
But
Chelsea last season. I mean, it
yeah,
wasn't just past Christmas last year where there
yeah,
was
well, yeah,
protests against the manager and the
of
players, and
course, want everybody out, and the whole thing was
like
just,
when you look at it, they've gone on and won the World Club Championship. Like
I know.
it's
And just
phenomenal turnaround.
and throw in the Euro Conference Cup as well. That's not too bad, is it, for a club that was in disarray in December last year?
So there is
And yeah,
expectation. I think more so
yeah,
now because the wages are more known about. People
mm,
people look at a wage and they think that's an immediate reason that you need to perform 100% every single week. You go, the
correct.
body is the body. It's a human thing. It can only do so much in so many periods of
Yeah,
time, which is why you still get managers. I think Jurgen Klopp was quite vocal about it, talking about, you need the winter break
mm,
and more rest for these boys, not more games. And actually, it'll be really interesting to see those clubs that went to that World Club Cup, how they start performing in January, February coming up, because that
yes,
would have been a long period of time they had to play football for this year. And
absolutely.
that for me will be quite interesting to see how that will manifest itself. But yeah, the expectation's phenomenal on these players. And when you go to the bigger clubs, you really start to realise it. And that was
Mm,
probably Dad's biggest take home from Manchester United, was just how big a club it was. Um,
yes. Absolutely. And of course, getting back to Ray and Manchester United, Ray did score 10 goals in his
mhm.
5 years with the Red Devils. I say the Red Devils now, of course, because that's what they are. Not as many goals as Ray scored for Chelsea, of course, but one of his goals was a long-range strike in the 2-2 draw with Brighton and Hove Albion in the 1983 FA Cup final at Wembley. I mean, now I'm sure your dad would have talked about that goal, Ross, when you were a bit older, because you only been about two at that time. But what a fantastic! I can remember seeing it. It was an incredible strike. It put
Yeah,
your
I
dad on
mean,
the map, really.
it did, and I think I've got a little thing on my Instagram account. It's very hard going back to those days to find the goals
Yes.
that we scored. And I've cribbed I think there's about 20 goals I managed to get, and I video cribbed them all together just for the kids to
Mm.
see more than anything, so they could see what their granddad kind of used to play like. And
Yeah.
It's really strange. He stopped. I think I said it earlier on. Whilst he was at Chelsea, he was a bit of a goal machine. He would score quite a
Yeah.
few goals a season, and his assists were obviously there. But as he got older, his goals were less and less, but they became more spectacular.
Mm.
There's left foot volleys that fly in the top corner against Bruce Grobbelaar for
Oh, yeah.
QPR. Like there's just goals galore, and they're brilliant finishes. Like if they were here now, you'd be like they'd be the top 10. They're phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that goal, actually, I've got a friend of mine when he passed. He actually took a screen grab of the image where Dad's kind of curling the ball, and he's had it framed for one of my sons in his bedroom. So he's got that up in his bedroom.
Wonderful.
So we kind of revisit that every time we go up there. It was a phenomenal strike, and with his weaker foot as well, to bend it round like that is just it was testament to who he was as a player and the ability he
Definitely.
had. He there was a goal. I think there was a goal against. I think it might have been Bulgaria or Hungary, for England. He lobs it over the top of the defenders, and then rather than smashing the ball, he just lifts it over the goalkeeper with like this technique that most people wouldn't have used it
Precision.
that way. Yeah, precision,
Yeah.
accuracy, and I just think that goal encompassed all of that, didn't it? It was a nice run out to
Without
the
doubt.
lovely pass to him as well, cuts inside, and then just has the confidence with his weaker foot to bend it round into the top corner. So, no, fantastic goal,
Brilliant.
one he was very very proud of.
I'm sure, and one that will be remembered by all and sundry, I think,
Mm.
forever and a day.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
it's uh, it's in cast in stone. I think that goal is wonderful. I mean, as you said earlier, Ray was voted Player of the Year by the team supporters at the end of the 1983-1984 season. I mean, Ray's midfield performance drew the attention of AC Milan. It would do, wouldn't it? Who made United a £1.5 million offer, which was accepted, and departed to Italy for around 3 years. I mean, you went out there as a young boy, of course. There must have been some great stories here, Ross, as well, which you've probably heard from family later on in life. The Italian dream, AC Milan, what a top club they were.
Yeah, they were a phenomenal
They are
team.
phenomenal players in that
Not
side at that
just
time.
not just team, it was the fan base and the club in
Oh,
general. There's I don't know if you've ever visited the San Siro yourself, but when you go there, there is
mm,
just something amazing about that stadium. When they were talking about knocking it down, I was praying they don't knock it down because I know it's
mm,
old and it's falling apart, but actually there is something phenomenal about the height of it, the way it
yes.
boxes in, the noise it creates is brilliant. And
Oh,
when you play the top teams out there, the Italian fans are just a different level to what we have
mm,
back here in terms of noise. They're in there 2 hours before kickoff back in the day. The flares are going off left, right, and centre. Very similar
exactly.
to, I think Crystal Palace is probably the only thing I've seen with their ultras recently that kind of come anywhere near what I've seen in Italy. But yeah, I used to go to the games with mum. We used to sit down. I used to have this little AC Milan kind of fold out thing that used to go over the stairs that you walk down, so the kids could sit on that, and we'd watch the games. Milan was just probably my first proper memories of a football stadium as a kid, to be fair. And
Wow.
obviously, nice to go back there with Dad when Chelsea were in the Champions League.
Yes.
And played there, and Dennis Wise scored his famous goal that they now sing about. So, yeah, that
Mm,
was that was really nice to be able to go back there in later life and see it, from another angle. But the
yeah.
the furore around that club is phenomenal. And when Mark Haitley and Dad moved over there,
Mm,
they were like the talk of the town, and they couldn't go anywhere without being photographed. And obviously we were young pups at the time, four, five,
mm,
six. But yeah, we were constantly bothered in restaurants and stuff like that. But it was just lovely, and they're just passionate about their football in a slightly different way to it is back here. I think more like the northern side of England, where in Italy a lot of the supporters of the clubs they work hard in the week to earn their money to pay for the season ticket to go to their football, and you
yes.
tend to find that back in like the kind of the northern side of England, where like Newcastle and Manchester and Liverpool were very similar to that kind of ethos.
Mm, mm,
And I think Dad kind of gravitated to that quite easily from being from Manchester United to there. So they had a very
yeah.
successful couple of seasons there. I'm not sure they won too much. I think they came close. But again, him and Mark Haley were
Mm,
well-renowned players, and they're still talked about. I went back there with my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and we walked into they had a shop near the Galleria in the middle of Milan. And I
mm.
walked in, I bought the white shirt with the nice Adidas stripes. And he said, "Do you want a name on the back?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, please, can I have Wilkins?" And he looked at me and he was like, "Wilkins?" He's like, "You're his son." And I was like, Yeah, I am. Yeah. He went,
Yeah.
the shirt's on us. And he gave me the shirt, put my name on the back, and just
Wow.
handed it to me in a bag. And I was like, wow, that's phenomenal. That's like 20 years after he's played for him. They still remember him as fondly as that to just
Well, that's
hand it
brilliant,
over.
isn't it?
Yeah, I was shell shocked at it, really. It was great.
Yeah, well, that's
Amazing.
fantastic. Great testament to Ray.
Mm,
Well, remembered forever
mm.
in at AC Milan. Superb, isn't it? What a
Yeah.
great thing that is.
And when he passed away, I think Franco Baresi took a Wilkins shirt to like the home end, and
Mm,
then they all did like a massive salute for him there and stuff like that. Which again, it just goes to show that his name was still, you know,
mm,
recognized, which was really nice.
absolutely. Oh, it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And well done to Baresi as well there. Fine footballer he was too, of course.
Mm,
Now
phenomenal.
let's move on to Ray's international career. We've got to, haven't we, really? Ray scored 3 goals in 84 games for England. Also captained the team, of course, on 10 occasions, and played at the 1982 and 1986 World Cups. Fantastic. What do you remember, Ross, about your dad's playing career for England? I mean, there must be some magic moments, and of course, some interesting stories too. I mean, I know one or two, but don't think I should bring them up on the show. But
Yeah,
I'll
we're
leave
going
that
to
to
leave a
you.
lot of them, that's for sure. I've heard a lot about hotels and swimming pools, but yeah, we'll
Oh,
leave.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it again earlier on that for him playing for his country, he was an Englishman at heart. Like there was a pride
Mm.
about him. He's one of those guys that wanted St. George's flag outside his house. He when we used to holiday in America a lot, and he used to be quite envious of how the Americans supported their country.
Mm.
And he felt that we should be very similar. So anytime he got to put on that England shirt, he was obviously immensely proud and wanted to do the best he possibly could. And I'm sure you were going to mention it anyway, but in that 86 World Cup when he got sent off, that was probably the lowest part of his footballing career ever.
Mm.
I don't think he even thought that that would have been the case, that he would have got sent off. And actually, when I watch it back now, he was
Mm.
petulant. Yeah, I'll give him that. But actually, I don't think it's a red card offence what
No, I
happened.
didn't think so either.
And I
That
think,
was,
if we'd have seen it nowadays from the multitude of angles that we get on TV,
yeah,
we'd have probably all
exactly.
gone, what on earth have they done there? Like, but he had to deal with that. He had to put on his big boy pants and carry on
Mm.
career after that. But yeah, for England, I mean, I mentioned the goal earlier. I'm sure it's Hungary he scored that against. But I think he felt a lot like how maybe the golden era of England more recently with the Rio Ferdinand and that
Mm.
team. I think he felt that they underachieved to where they could have achieved. I
Mm.
think
It's a fair statement, though, isn't it?
yeah, I mean when go through the team, it's a phenomenal side, and you go through the eras that we've had as an England team since
Mm.
then. We've all been close, haven't we? We've all been
We
in that
have.
sort of semi-final
Yeah.
area, and yeah, we were going through his stuff recently up at the place where we keep all his like memorabilia and stuff, which we're still determining what to do with. And we pulled out a couple of his England caps, and they were from
Mm.
from the World Cup lead up games. And it was just phenomenal to think about like all those games, like 84 games he played for England. It's a
That's incredible,
phenomenal
isn't it?
achievement. And over such a long period of time. And I think actually he would have easily hit 100. He was injured for about 6 months
Mm.
during his England career. And I think he would have hit over 100 at some point and become a centurion, which is a bit of a shame, really, for him.
That's a
Um,
huge shame.
yeah.
But
But I think
nonetheless, 84
captaining,
caps.
yeah, not to be sniffed at. And I think, again, I go back to it. I said it about Chelsea, and it's no
Mm.
different with England. Captaining his country was by far his best personal achievement.
Oh, wonderful.
There was that sense of pride again to wear that armband and lead your team out onto a pitch. I think he did it, quote me if I'm wrong, but he did it 8 or 10 times, something like that.
Mm.
And for him, I think every one of those games would have meant equally as much as the other.
Brilliant. Oh, that's a fantastic story and great recollection of your side there as well, Ross. I mean, Ray Wilkins was called up to play for England for the first time, and this is unbelievable, in 1976 by coach Don Revie. I mean, that takes us back, and of course, Don Revie didn't like Chelsea players, but simply couldn't overlook Ray Wilkins, could he? Ray made his debut on the 28th of May in a 3-2 win over Italy at the USA Bicentennial Cup tournament in New York. I mean, did your dad ever tell you about his debut for England, Ross? I mean, to be called up
No,
by Don Revie, that's an absolute rarity.
Yeah, and I mean, again, testament to how he was playing at the time, right, and what he could offer. But no, I don't. We didn't really talk much about his debut. It was more about, like I said earlier, the kind of just prideful playing for your country. He used to kind of drum that into us as that is the absolute elite of elite. And I mean, my dad would sit there and watch every single sport that England were involved in.
Mm,
You know, when England were playing in the rugby, we'd watch every game.
yes.
When we were playing Europe versus the US in the Ryder Cup,
Mm,
it's Europe all day long because we're part of that.
yeah,
And that was how
absolutely.
he was as an individual. So no, I have no recollection about his debut for England, sadly. But yeah, like the England love he had for playing for him was unreal.
Well, I was hoping at the time that it wasn't going to be a Don Revie kiss of death because I know Don Revie chose Alan Hudson for his England debut against West Germany I think, in 1975, and he didn't play again, or he may have one more game, and that was the end. So being chosen by Don Revie might have been a bit of a,
Bit of a
you
curse.
know, bit of a curse, really. But it didn't. It wasn't, of course, because he'd done he completed 84 caps. So fantastic. So the curse of Don Revie was removed with your great father Ray. There's no doubt about that, Ross. Fantastic. Ray, of course, made his final and 84th England appearance against the then Yugoslavia, no longer a country, of course, anymore, in 1986. And what did your dad say to you about his final match for England? I mean, would have been about, I don't know, 5 years of age, maybe?
Five,
Six?
yeah.
Yeah.
I think he found that very difficult, full stop. But he
Mm,
found all his kind of finals very difficult.
I bet. Yeah.
Because I think when you put so much heart and soul into something and you're so passionate about what you're doing, when
Mm,
that comes to an end, inevitably that comes with great sadness, doesn't it, really?
it does, yeah.
So yeah, I think all his finals for all his clubs, he would have felt very similar to. But I think England, especially, as I said
Mm,
before, it was such a big part of his life and what he wanted to try and achieve with it. And I think when he was playing at QPR in latter life, maybe 36. There was
yes.
a there was a there's a paper clipping I've got at home. We found it in a drawer the other week, and it was like surely Wilkins gets call up again, and it
Yeah.
was all about how he like reinvented himself in this new way of playing for QPR at the time, and that how on earth was he not in the England team that was going to the next World Cup as a senior professional, which had experience, but also in the way that he was playing, he would have been able to affect the team in a really positive manner. So I think when he saw that, he was quite hopeful that it might
Mm,
reignite itself. But
yeah.
again, I think he was just on the wrong side of his 30s.
Yeah.
And probably there were other players that were playing equally as well that were maybe a little bit younger that wanted to go and get that experience for future. So he missed out on that kind of
Well,
comeback as well.
you admire his ambition, though, don't you, Ross? Really,
Mm.
because they still had that get up and go, wanting to achieve, wanting to play for England, wanting to play football. Fantastic.
Yeah.
But of course, that all led into Ray's coaching career, and it was an interesting one too, actually, with Ray appointed Queens Park Rangers manager from 1994 to 1996, and then managed fellow West London club Fulham, of course. Can't forget our neighbours, can we? In 1997 and 1998. So an interesting start to Ray's management and coaching career, Ross, wasn't it? You know, two West London clubs. He
Yeah.
loved West London.
And he did, and I think he created a really fond love for Queens Park Rangers. To be honest with you, I
Yeah.
think there was I mentioned earlier about characters in football,
Mm.
and I can still remember because I was getting into my teens then, so I remember going down to the training ground every summer, for pre-season and stuff like that, and the vibe around that club was phenomenal. They
Yeah.
had some great players: Trevor Sinclair, Andy Sinton,
Oh,
Andrew
it did.
Impey. You go through the whole team: Kevin Gallen, Les Ferdinand, Clive Wilson. There was a goalkeeper there called Jan Stagegal who had this
Oh,
fluorescent
yes.
yellow top, and he was a phenomenal goalkeeper. And as a family, I think we felt a real bond with them. That was the last club we were at where you had a proper players' lounge. So
Yes. Oh,
after
really?
after your game, you'll go upstairs. Every player would be up there. Even the opposition would be up there.
Mm,
They'd all have a beer after the game together, but all the families would be in there mixing. And that's how it was at
brilliant.
Glasgow Rangers, at United. But after that, it kind of started to phase out a little bit. And
Mm,
I'm not sure whether that was, I think back then there was still a foreign rule, wasn't there, in the game? I think where you could only have like 3 or 4 non-English players playing for your team.
That's
That was
right.
abolished. And then I think you found that the dressing rooms probably weren't as tight as what they were back then. Um,
Mm,
so yeah, I think yeah, that's a phenomenal memory. And he did, like I said to you earlier, he did so well in one season when they got up to sixth.
mm,
And then a little bit like the conversation with Chelsea, we were holidaying in Florida. I remember we was actually at Disneyland and we're sitting around by the pool and his phone rang and it was the chairman of QPR at the time. And he looked really kind of distraught at the conversation he was having, and he walked away. And when he came back, he was almost depressed instantly.
oh,
And when we started talking, they just informed him that they were selling, I think, Clive Wilson to Tottenham and Les Ferdinand was going to Newcastle. And
oh,
obviously they just built on this side that they had. They had a good ethos. He thought he was going to go
mm,
out and sign some players to add to that team to go and then try and challenge for Europe. And then
yeah,
in the end, it,
absolutely.
it became a real hard slog. They signed a couple of players that probably weren't of the level, and a
Mm,
couple that maybe disappointed. And then they ended up getting relegated that season. And that was my only real negative season in football, if I'm being honest. Most of my seasons were either, fourth, fifth, sixth,
yes.
in for a cup, they got knocked out. Okay, cool. But relegation is it's like it was like a morgue in the stadium. It was a really
Mm,
strange feeling because you knew straight away people were going to lose their jobs. People were having their pay,
yes.
the players were having their pay cut. The next season was going to look completely different. And in the end, obviously, that didn't stick around too much longer. Fulham was a bit of a strange one. He went in there. I think Kevin Keegan was a chief executive officer with him. So
Mm,
obviously they knew each other from England days under Mohamed Al Fayed. So you
mm,
kind of it was a bit of a dream team set up where you thought you had that kind of money of the Harrods back in, and you had this dream team of Dad and Kevin. And I
mm.
just think from what I know of that time, it just didn't quite work out how it should have panned out. And it ended up a bit sour towards the back end. So yeah, he had a bit of a hard start to his football managerial career, which then is hard to come back from.
It
Um,
is.
it's very, very difficult. And then obviously, we'll talk about it in a minute, I'm sure you go from a manager to a coach and then you
Mm,
do well, you then become typecasted as a coach. And it's then very hard to get back into the managerial side of things again,
definitely.
which he always kind of yearned for one more opportunity, one more chance.
Yeah. And very well put about now going into coaching because that is what we're going to go into. And in March 1999, that's very, very good, Ross, for saying that. Ray was appointed Chelsea's first team coach alongside Graham Rix, of course, after the sacking of Gianluca Vialli at the start of the 2000 and 2001 FA Premier League season. Both Ray and Graham were sacked on the orders of new manager Claudio Ranieri in November 2000. This was when Chelsea was starting to morph into a great club once again. I mean, Ross, I remember that Ranieri side. They were brilliant. I mean, it must have been a very difficult moment for Ray at the time, though, to be edged out on the verge of because of Claudio Ranieri coming in.
Yeah,
Um,
so I think
and
under Luca they created something quite special. I mean, him
they
and
did
him and Luca were tight as anything. Like they
a
were
great
best.
friendship, weren't they, as well?
Yeah,
Huge.
like just to kind of bring that to the fore as to how strong they were. Like when Dad was dying, he was the third person into the hospital.
Mm,
I remember walking out with him and he just literally, when we got outside in the fresh air, he broke down in tears, Luca, like he just
yeah.
couldn't believe what he'd witnessed. So they were thick as thieves. They were a great duo. They had a lovely kind of squad ethos back
Mm,
then. And I think given a bit of time, I think they actually had a platform on which they could have gone on and done some even better things with Chelsea.
I would
They
agree.
they'd achieved some
I
good
agree.
stuff, but I think they could have done better. And Dad stuck around for the early part of Claudio's reign, but he became more, it's not being disparaging towards that, he became more, or Claudio, he became more of a translator for Claudio rather
Mm,
than a coach. And I don't think he was that happy with that role.
mm,
I don't think anyone wants to go from being a number two to someone you're really tight with to someone that now
yeah,
you're translating for in a dressing room. It was never going to work out long term. So there was inevitability about him leaving at that point, which is obviously sad
absolutely.
because it's back to the boyhood club thing
Yeah,
again.
exactly.
It goes full circle. But him and Luca then go on to go to Watford.
They
Uh,
did. They went to Watford together. Yes.
yeah. And
They were
again,
together for a while, weren't they?
another mixed bag there. We won't delve too much into it, but there was ownership struggles there and stuff like
There
that.
was.
Money problems and stuff. They brought some fantastic players in. Again, characters. One guy called Filippo Gali, ex-AC Milan, phenomenal football player. And he came in and they tried to stabilise the back four with him, but obviously he hadn't played in the Premiership, so it's quite difficult for him to get used to at the start of it. And it was a tough team to go and coach and manage, and it was a tough environment for them both to work in. And I think going from Chelsea, where you were used to winning stuff, to going to
Yes.
Watford, where there was just an expectation of doing okay, that had the kind of opposite kind of mental ethos to when he went to Manchester United as a player. So it's quite difficult to deal with. I mean,
I can
Watford,
imagine.
I've got to be honest, like all the clubs we've been at, and you can rattle them all off. There's not one bad club out there. I honestly believe that. Like all the fan bases are phenomenal.
They
Um,
are.
they're just passionate about their own team. And Watford again, it was another great experience to be part of. Like I managed to go and watch all of their home games for the time we were there, and understand I met a few great people like Stephen Hughes. I still talk to now, the ex-Arsenal midfielder. We brought him in at one point. I was having my knee treated in the doctor's room, and he was right next to me, and we got on quite well, and he got on really well with Dad, so he keeps in contact from time to time now, which is great. So you meet people along the way with these clubs
You
that
do.
still are in your life, and you'll cross over with every now and again, which is lovely.
What about Elton John? Did you ever meet Elton John, who was
No,
famously
but my claim to fame is that I've wheel spun in his driveway. Um,
fantastic?
so I was always a bit of a petrol head as a kid, and Dad
Yes.
got invited round to his house once, and I was like, "Oh, I'm definitely driving you there for dinner." So Luca had just got there before us, and he said, it was like a gravel drive going in. He went, "Whatever you
Yeah.
do not speed out of this driveway." And I looked at Elton John and his boyfriend at the time, and Mum and Dad were walking in with Viali, and I don't know what came over me, but I put my foot down, and the wheels just started spinning, and it went everywhere. So I got a message from Dad saying he wasn't too happy
I
with
bet he
how
wasn't.
I said,
Well,
but
that's a
he's happy with the
good
free ride.
story.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm sure Elton John will remember that today, wouldn't he? You're
yeah,
probably etched in his mind always now. The day
exactly.
Ross Wilkins
No, Ross Wilkins sat
destroyed my
down.
driveway. Brilliant stuff. However, Ray's England under-21 coaching career started in 2004, so he's still back in the game. When Ray was assistant coach to Peter Taylor. Oh, Peter Taylor, what a player he was, until Peter Taylor left in early 2007. Ray was not retained by incoming coach Stuart Pearce. It always happens, doesn't it? But how did Ray feel about this latest setback, Ross? I mean, he's had something going with Peter Taylor, and all of a sudden it's all been pinched from him again.
Very successful with Peter Taylor as well. I
Yeah,
can't. What's the
he
name of the
was.
tournament? Was it the Toulon tournament they won? I can't remember what
Yes,
they
they
won.
did. They were
Um,
successful.
they were successful on the 21 team, and they were the grounding of what then became the golden era of the England team at that time.
Yeah,
So yeah, look, whenever you're number two to anyone, I think your shelf life is pretty much tagged for you, isn't it? If the coach goes, typically you're going to go with them. Stuart coming in to do a job, does he want someone there that's been part of something else, or does he want to bring someone in with him that can then go and achieve something together? He probably wants his own staff, doesn't he? You
of
you
course he
find
does.
out
Yeah,
when Maresca comes in at Chelsea, he wants to bring his whole backroom staff with him.
it happens
This
all the
just
time.
happens in football all the time now. So
Yeah,
it became obvious, I think, after his managerial career and the bit that he had at Watford, that he knew that he was going to have a bit of a yo-yo coaching life. I think shelf life for a manager back then would have been a couple of years, maybe three. So that's kind of the top end you're ever going to be at a club, isn't it?
yeah, it is
Um,
really, to be honest.
yeah, so he became a bit immune to it, and it was more a case of, right, cool, we're out of work now, 6 months, let's sit
Mm.
around and see what happens, and we'll go back in on the next one where possible.
Which he did. And of course, in September 2008, Ray was appointed assistant first team coach to Louis Philippe Scolari. What a name to conjure with. Back at Chelsea, following Steve Clarke's departure to West Ham United. So, Ross, your dad, Ray, was back at his boyhood club once again as first team coach. Wow, what a story.
He was, and I think that was the start of his um, that at that point, I think when Scolari took over, they were becoming the team, weren't they? They were starting
They
to
were.
really be known as one of the top players, one of the top players in their Premier League. And I think
Yeah.
he really was excited about that. And I think I can't remember what actually happened with the Scolari era. It was quite short, wasn't it?
It
It
was short.
didn't really
Yeah,
kick
very
off
short.
the way it was supposed to have done. And then who came in straight after him? Was that
Well,
when?
for Louis Philippe Scolari had a shock sacking, didn't he? Really? Because I thought
Yeah.
it was quite a shock. Didn't for whatever reason go down too well, but he was getting results, and the team was playing some lovely football. And Ray then your dad was then appointed Chelsea's caretaker manager
Hmm.
for the fifth round FA Cup tie with Watford. No,
Watford away.
Watford. Yeah. Chelsea won the game 3-1 through a Nicholas Anelka hat-trick with the club's new manager, Gus Hiddink, watching from the stands. A topsy-turvy time for Chelsea and your dad, Ross, wasn't it, really? So Gus Hiddink coming in and another exit probably for Ray.
Yeah, but
It was indeed.
he also must be Chelsea's most successful manager ever because that's 100% win record, right? So
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean,
managed one
incredible.
game, won one game. So he's never lost as manager for Chelsea. No, and Gus, he absolutely adored. I think they
Mm.
instantly struck a chord with each other. They went on to win, was it the FA Cup that season? Do I recall that correctly?
Yes, I think that's correct.
And it's the one where Gus gets him up into the stand with him because he
That's
reckoned
it.
actually Dad was the main part in keeping that squad together through that period of time. And yeah, like they had a phenomenal relationship. But Gus was larger than life, like really good fun guy. And
Yeah,
the team was great. Like, the back four was phenomenal. It was really starting to shape up to be something
it
special.
was.
Which it ended up being in that double season, right? Like I think that
Mm.
that season was just something I'd never experienced in football.
Yeah, it was phenomenal, wasn't it? And of course, then under good hitting, of course, Ray's contract wasn't renewed. We're back to this again. And whilst appearing as a guest on Sky Sports Champions League coverage in December 2010, Ray stated that Chelsea still had not given him a reason for his sacking. But I guess this is what happens all the time when new managers take over, as you've just already said. Really, he
Yep.
wants to bring in his own staff, Ross. But that's a real shame for Ray, wasn't it? Your dad, he was back there, he was enjoying football again, and circumstances got in the way.
Yeah, I mean, when people ask me like, why don't you support Chelsea? I look at it instantly. I go, well, they've sold him and they've sacked him 3 times. Why
So you
would
haven't
I
got much love
support?
from that point of
Why
view, have
would
you?
I
No.
support Chelsea as a family
Yeah.
man? No,
Yeah.
like
No.
again, another painful
Yeah.
way to leave the club. And I think it's that boyhood club thing again as well. When you're brought
It
up,
is.
gone back there, left there, gone back there, left there, but gone back there and been successful, and then left. That became quite hard for him to deal with. And
Mm.
and at times he would get quite low, and start questioning himself. And I think when you get fired and you're not given a reason, then I think it's very hard to come to terms with.
Mm.
If I went into any business tomorrow and just sacked someone, it wouldn't happen, would it? You have to be
No.
brought in, you have to be given a process, you go through that process,
Yeah.
you get
Exactly.
due time to reflect and change your ways, and then, if it's still happening, then you go. Whereas in football, it's a different game. It doesn't abide by the normal laws of employment. So it's
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
tomorrow, you're gone. See you later.
You either
Um,
win matches or you're out. It's as simple as that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is, which is tough, but
It's tough.
it ends up becoming a better story as we move forward anyway.
It does, yeah, well, of course. And of course, Ray was part of the media team that contributed to the Football Italia show that aired on Channel 4.
Mhm.
Ray later appeared as commentator for Sky Sports, particularly on their Champions League coverage. Kind of talked about that earlier on, particularly around Chelsea, of course. Ray also worked for Talksport, and Ray was a very polished commentator, wasn't he? His knowledge of football was outstanding. I mean, what he'd learnt over the years of playing, coaching, managing was simply phenomenal. I mean, you must be proud, Ross, your dad's media expertise too. I mean, I can remember listening to him doing his media coverage, and he was really, really good. And he came across well spoken, proper quality conversations around football, and he knew his stuff, and it came across.
Yeah, I think people think media must be easy for footballers, but so many don't do it for a
No,
reason. That's because they
mm,
can't. It's really not
exactly.
easy to sit there and I think. he found co-commentary difficult at the start, which is obviously what
Mm,
he went with Peter Brackley and James Richardson to do with the Football Italia side of things.
yes,
But he then grew in confidence with it in terms of when to interject, when to allow them to talk. Yeah, there's a lot of methodology towards co-commentating that you need to kind of understand, and when you're young to it, I think it's quite difficult. But then obviously he became more of a pundit in the
he did.
studio more during Richard Keys's reign at Sky,
Mm,
in that era of football where Sky TV would just come into the fore and really starting
they
to
were.
penetrate the market and take it over and put the money in. And he learned a lot from the way they presented themselves in terms of like the suit, the tie, really sharp looking. And then obviously in latter life, radio was something he loved.
Yes.
Alan Brazil, so especially he loves going on with Alan. Always spoke really highly of him. And Talksport gave him a really good life, as it does a lot of ex-pros when they're in their intermediate stage. I listened to Neil Warnock the other day, and he's still pushing himself for new roles and new jobs whilst he's on Talksport.
But why
Because
not?
Talksport's a really, yeah, why not? It's a perfect thing to do, right? I'm going to go
Yeah,
work on Talksport, give my
he
opinion,
loves
which is
it.
very valid, and I want to get back in the game. Like,
Yeah,
give the guy a job, let him have a crack at it again.
absolutely. Neil Warner, what a coach he was.
Yeah,
Fantastic. What a manager.
he's
Brilliant.
um he's one of those guys that I was very fortunate to meet actually, Neil. And I never really knew what to think about him. Like, I honestly can't remember the club where it might have been QPR. And he's always very aggressive, isn't he, when he's on the bench and
Yeah, he
quite
is. Yeah.
forceful, like. And he was up in the players' lounge afterwards, and he came over towards Dad, and he looked quite angry. And they had a bit of a spat towards the end of the game. And he literally just got near him, his mouth opened up and just beamed with a smile and
Mm,
shook Dad's hand. And like he came and joined us on the table for 5, 10 minutes. Like, I just thought,
yeah.
what different way of like seeing someone in real life. Like, it's quite nice to
Yeah.
see. But no,
And
and
that's what he's like in real life, Neil Warnock. He's generally a nice person, isn't he?
seems lovely.
That's
Seems like a
yeah,
lovely guy. And people
absolutely.
like with diversifying a little bit, with people like Jose as well. He had this
Mm,
this persona that he was one thing. But I can tell you for now, Jose is a lovely, lovely man. He
yeah, I hear that from a lot of people.
he was texting me. There was an Anthony Joshua fight I was watching one night, and I just had my phone just rang with a WhatsApp message, and it was JM in the top corner. I thought, who the bloody hell's JM? Opened it up, and
Jose
it was Jose
Mourinho.
saying, I'm just watching the fight. I'm sure your dad would have loved to have watched this tonight. And
Ah,
we had a
brilliant.
conversation on the phone. And after that, he went to Man United as manager and invited us on the pitch with the kids to have a photo with him. And it was just,
Perfect.
like, people don't see that side of people like him, but
No.
they need to hear more about it, because he's another lovely guy in football. And there's so many of them that have this persona that they have to put on,
Mm.
and they can't kind of relinquish themselves from it. But deep down, they're really nice people. And a lot of
No, I
football.
follow that. I
Yeah.
follow that completely. I mean, I've heard that story about Jose from many people, so I fully believe what you're saying there as well. He was a lovely man, or is a lovely man, I should
Yeah,
say.
he's a lovely guy.
Top notch, top notch, and of course a Chelsea icon. But he loves Chelsea too, doesn't he? Jose Mourinho, it's in his blood, a
Yeah, he
bit like
does.
your father. He cut him in two, and his blue blood will come out for sure. I mean, and finally, as a testament to Ray Wilkins, Carlo Ancelotti wrote in his autobiography, "The beautiful games of an ordinary genius." Ray is one of those select few, always present, noble in spirit, a real blue blood. Chelsea flows in his veins. Without him, we wouldn't have won a thing. Some accolade, Ross, to your dad, from one of the finest football coaches in football folklore and in the modern game. What a wonderful statement to make. And it's all written down in his autobiography. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there was a period. Was it the Gus Hiddink bit where he got sacked then? I think they went on a run of something like 11 games
Yeah.
without a win. And when I was fortunate enough to chat to John Terry about it, he was mentioning that something was lacking in the dressing room. You just felt the energy had kind of drained out
Mm.
of the squad. And it is phenomenal to think that one human being could have an impact on something that
Yeah.
big. But Dad was a really big character.
Oh.
He wasn't overly, like, I can't explain it. In a group of people, he wouldn't be loud, but
Mm.
he'd be subtly pulling people together and making sure everyone was knit together really well. And on the training pitch, he'd be the one having a laugh and a joke, but when it was time to be serious, you'd know about it, and it was time to be serious.
Yes.
And that's very similar to how he kind of fathered us as kids growing up and stuff. And I think Gus really recognised that. so did Carlo in the end when they went and won the double.
Mm.
That season, I was really fortunate. Me and my now wife were together for quite some time, and she didn't know much about football when she met me, and we started going to a few of the home games that at the start of the season. I said, this team's going to do something quite special this year. I could just feel it. They had a really
Yeah.
good balance around the squad. And you could just sense something was coming with them. And I said to her, what about if we didn't have children at the time. I said, what about if we followed the team for the season? And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, let's go to all the away games and we'll go to the home
Mm.
games and let's just see where it goes. And in the end, she just fell in love with football and the whole
Yeah.
passion around it. And she couldn't quite understand it until that point. But she was getting a full backroom view of everything from the hotel stays the night before to the dinners, the
Mm.
breakfasts, the pre-match meals. And it was such a great insight for a season into a top championship winning team. And they just annihilated everyone. And it was
Yeah.
it was down to ability, it was down to their team bond. And it was down to them having some world-class players. And to be fair,
Of
that year
course.
would have gone on to win the Champions League as well and done the treble, but that wasn't to be, was it, against the
No,
fateful
sadly.
Barcelona team?
Yes, I remember that very well. And I think the manager, no, the referee, I do believe, was the one that was inspiring for the Barcelona win. I seem to remember some decisions there that referee was making, which were just unparalleled in football. I
Mm.
mean, what was going on with that referee? I just don't know. I mean, I won't say paid off. Oh, dear, I've just said it. But it's classic, isn't it? I
Yeah,
mean,
well, it
really,
wasn't it wasn't great to watch.
no.
And obviously they take the win in the end or get the result and Chelsea go out and that was the end of that. But that
Mm,
season finished on such a high anyway, to go and
it
win the
did.
there was a game where again my wife sat with me and we were having a bet. I think they were playing Wigan at home.
Mm.
She wrote down 8-0 on her betting slip, and I was like, "What are you doing? That is just throwing money down the drain."
And it
Well,
was, wasn't it? I think.
they went and beat them 8, yeah. It was just, I
Just
think
ridiculous.
Solomon
Wigan.
Kalou scored some goals and Elka scored some
Yeah.
goals. It was just goals flying in from everywhere. Drogba was
Oh,
phenomenal. The front three they had in an attacking sense was just off the scale in terms of power and
mm,
pace. And I don't think that's been rivaled recently. When you look at the front threes that are out there now,
yeah,
they were just phenomenal. That
they were.
Chelsea team could have taken anyone on at that time.
Mm.
And then, they go and win the FA Cup at the back end of it as well, which is a fantastic way to kind of end that season,
It,
really.
exactly, it was a fantastic end to the season, and it's gone on ever since. So the history of Chelsea continues. It won't end, will it? Your dad's part of it. A big part of Chelsea's history, in not just as a player, as a coach. Some of the inspirational people, coaches and managers worked with at Chelsea. Um, you know, what a great storyline that is, Ross. I mean, it's something you must be very proud of. It really must be.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And I think like seeing, we're very fortunate. We managed to keep fours and season tickets there that we
mm,
we buy year after year, and we've said that no matter whether the kids support Chelsea or not, it's great for them to be able to go back there
mm,
and understand what he was part of. And go and watch top Premier League football. All my children love football,
exactly.
so they get to watch some top Premier League football. They get to watch the team that their granddad loved and played for, and then we're very fortunate to sit underneath the banner that says that we don't make them like Ray anymore. So there's always
Brilliant.
that sentimental element to going to the ground as well. So yeah, I can only thank the Chelsea supporters especially. And it's not just them, like through that period of time when he
Mm,
passed, I had calls from every corner of the earth saying how sorry they were to hear our news, whether that be on Twitter, which is now X, or Instagram or WhatsApp and phone calls. It was phenomenal. But Chelsea especially have been great with us really
yeah,
throughout
it's
the
good to
period of
hear.
time and post period as well. So no, that's lovely.
That's good to hear. That's a fitting end to this show, really. Fantastically well said. So, what is next in the world of Ross Wilkins? Getting onto yourself, Ross. What do you know? What's your plans next?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Who
Absolutely.
knows
Yeah,
where
yeah.
the
The
world will
world's
take
your
us?
oyster.
Do
The
any of us
world's your
know what we're
oyster.
doing next? I don't know.
No, we don't. I don't even know if I'm going to get up in the morning, let alone what's going to happen tomorrow. So let's just see. The sun comes up, the sun goes down. As long as I'm breathing God's air, I'm happy. And if I can
Exactly the
create
same.
great shows like this that everybody can enjoy and listen to, I'm happy. And that's a great thing too, isn't it? So
Yeah,
it's all
great.
about doing the things you enjoy doing.
It is.
Media's great, by the way.
I'm very fortunate. I've got four beautiful children. I've got a lovely
You're
wife.
lucky, yeah.
I work hard. I think you mentioned it right at the start. I love my grassroots football.
You do.
And last season got involved with a youth team at Dorking Wanderers, which we went on to be really successful with. And I'm back involved with them this year with our coach Thierry, which so that'll be great fun. My little one that's turning 4 is just starting with a little local kickers club called Kiko, so it'd be great to go
Brilliant.
and bring him along and get his journey started. And my eldest is hitting that age where he's into absolutely everything now. He's actually into his athletics more than he is football, and he's doing really well with that, apart from the fact he tore his hamstring a couple of weeks back, which is a bit of a shame.
That's a shame.
So yeah, like I said, I plough my life into the family now. Still see mum weekly,
Good.
love her to pieces. Sis lives over in Brentwood in Essex, so I don't get to see as much of her. We're in Surrey, so it's quite a distance. But when we do, it's lovely to catch up and obviously see Dad's family as and when we can,
Yep.
for special occasions and stuff. So yeah, that's what's next for me. Just carry on working hard, see where that gets us, and then keep going with the family side of things.
Fantastic. Great stuff, and I'm pleased for you. I hope that all continues successfully. I know we talked business before, but I hope the business runs for you well. Family's fantastic, and we've been on the show now for about an hour and a half, by the way. So it's been an hour and a half. It's just
I
disappeared.
need dinner.
I mean, I know. So do I. That's what I'm thinking about now. Food. So what I'll do is I'll just say, as always, this is always my sort of final gambit, Ross. As always on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show, we could talk forever, Ross, about your incredible, much loved and much missed dad, Ray Butch Wilkins, and indeed we could. It's been a huge pleasure as always, and as always, the pleasure is all mine, and of course the show's audience when this podcast is released on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show and the Lord Russell Baker YouTube channel. Thank you, Ross. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you Ross Wilkins, and I'm sort of doing a clapping of the hands here. It's absolutely fantastic. I mean, Ross, do you mind staying on just for a couple of minutes? I know you're hungry, so am I, and I'll just wrap up. That'd be fantastic. The next episode on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show is Business Turnaround Specialists with Michelle Lestos. Yeah, a non-sporting show this time. Michelle heads up Ment Up Lead Up as a business consulting company who specialise in empowering business leaders to develop vision and strategy for sustained growth, covering the UK, Europe, United States, Australia, and the Far East. So a great show to look forward to for all, and of course exclusive on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show and the Lord Russell Baker YouTube channel. And of course, I'm looking forward to seeing you all on the inside. So until then, it's au revoir from him and au revoir from me.